on MSNBC. Joining me live now is Democratic Congressman Hakeem Jeffries of New York. He's a member of the House Judiciary and Budget Committee. He's also a member of the House Democratic Leadership Team and the Congressional Black Caucus. Congressman, you know, sometimes it seems to an observer that Donald Trump goes out of his way to step on a landmine in the midst of public comments or interviews. He really didn't today. He seemed to sound the right notes in the right tone about the topic at hand with respect to African Americans, and when Craig talked to him about the recent anti-Semitic attacks or actions.
Well, for the time being, he stayed on message, but it remains to be seen what's going to happen in the next hour, the next day, the next week. I think it's important to recognize that, one, Donald Trump is correct. There still is a significant racial divide in this country, but also he helped to contribute to it and to make it worse. We know that for 5 years he perpetrated the racist lie that Barack Obama was not born in the United States of America, suggesting that he was born in Kenya. It was an effort to delegitimize the first black president of the United States of America, and it helped to further exacerbate division within our society. I'm hopeful that this is a small step in the right direction today that will be followed up by meaningful action in terms of addressing the problems that ail the African American community specifically, but the broader American public generally.
So it's unsophisticated to suggest that just going to the museum heals the divide, but actually the president going to that museum and the effect that it seems to have had on him, given what you've just said, could actually help.
Symbolism can be meaningful, but it has to be followed up by concrete action. For instance, the African American community, as detailed in that museum, has traveled along a journey of contributing much to the success of American society, going all the way back to Crispus Attucks being the first American to die in the Revolutionary War at the Boston Massacre, all the way through to the contributions that have been made in science and industry and math, all throughout the disciplines that have made this country a great country. At the same period of time, we've also traveled from slavery to Jim Crow to mass incarceration. The war on drugs had a devastating impact on the African American community. We've got 5% of the world's population, 25% of the world's incarcerated individuals in America, a disproportionate number of them African American, many nonviolent drug offenders. It has devastated communities all across this country. There's a bipartisan effort right now underway in the House and the Senate to try to fix our broken criminal justice system. It remains to be seen whether Donald Trump is going to join in.
Because no matter where you are, if you're a fiscal conservative, you're sitting here thinking we're spending far too much money on incarceration. We've got way too many people in jail. It's just expensive. But is that why the president and the Congressional Black Caucus should meet? Do you think that these are sorts of ideas where he'll sit there and say, oh, that makes a lot of sense?
There's a whole host of issues that I think are going to be put on the table if that meeting were to take place under the leadership of Cedric Richmond, who's our chairman, and the 49 members of the Congressional Black Caucus in both the House and the Senate. Fixing our broken criminal justice system will be at the top of the list. Dealing with the damage that was done to the Voting Rights Act in 2013 by the Supreme Court in a way that will allow for all Americans to participate in our democracy will be important. Creating an economy that works for everyone, not just big business and big industry and big oil, but for all hardworking Americans, including the African American community, will be important. A rising tide lifts all boats.
You know, yesterday I spoke with one of your colleagues from the Congress, also a member of the Congressional Black Caucus, who said the accusation that the Democratic Party does take African Americans for granted, he believes is true, and that the Democrats are going to have to come out there and not assume that because somebody's black they should vote Democrat, but they're actually going to have to address these things a little more head-on than they have been doing.
Absolutely. Democrats need an affirmative agenda to deal with issues impacting African Americans, and there is a feeling amongst some in the African American community that Democrats as a whole have taken advantage of our loyalty to the party without reciprocating in terms of public policy accomplishments. So that's an issue that we're going to have to deal with moving forward.
Is there any progress in setting this meeting up? Everybody remembers the press conference where he suggested that April Ryan set up the meeting with the Congressional Black Caucus because she must know people from it. Where does the CBC stand with meeting with the president?
Well, it's my understanding that there has been some outreach to the CBC subsequent to that exchange between Donald Trump and April Ryan. We go back into session next week. We'll see what happens. I think there is a willingness to have a discussion, but the CBC sent a letter to Donald Trump on January 19th that heretofore had not been responded to, laying out a whole host of issues that we can work together on to improve the country as a whole and deal with issues that impact African Americans.
And subsequently tweeted out, because sometimes that's how you get to the president, that invitation was there. However, a number of you have said that you do not want to meet with Steve Bannon. Does that become an unnecessary holding point? I mean, I understand that you think Steve Bannon doesn't share the interests and goals of the Congressional Black Caucus, but why hold up the meeting?
Well, for the life of me, I think you've got to draw the line in the sand somewhere. And it's not clear to me how anything productive can come out of a meeting with Steve Bannon, who has basically demonstrated no interest throughout his life in dealing with issues of importance to the African American community, and in fact has done the opposite in fanning flames of division and intolerance, particularly as he ran Breitbart News.
But does it help African Americans if you don't have that meeting because you won't go to it if Steve Bannon's there?
Well, the members of the Congressional Black Caucus under the leadership of Congressman Richmond ultimately are going to have to decide where that line should be drawn. I'm of the view that we should not legitimize the presence of Steve Bannon in the White House. He wasn't subject to confirmation. There was no fight on the Senate floor. But we can say it's not acceptable to have someone like Steve Bannon in the White House, and we're not going to legitimize his presence by meeting with him.
Congressman Jeffries, good to talk to you. Thank you for taking time to be with us.
Thank you.
Hakeem Jeffries is a Democrat.